This presentation discusses the basics of the Data Practices Act and outlines what all employees need to know. Chapter 13 of the Minnesota Statutes contains the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act. In order to understand your duties when it comes to data practices, it is important to first understand what government data includes. Data is a broad term that is used to refer to any information that is collected, created, received, maintained, or disseminated by a government entity regardless of its physical form, storage media, or conditions of use. This includes a wide range of information that you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, such as emails that you send and receive, notes that you take throughout the course of your day, applications that are submitted or received, statistics that are collected or maintained, personnel records, and any other documentation or information that is maintained in any physical form. Data do not include thoughts or unrecorded or undocumented conversations. In the Data Practices Act, data are defined as either data on individuals or data not on individuals, and all data fall into one of these two categories. Data on individuals includes all government data which an individual can be identified as the subject of that data. Data not on individuals includes all other government data. This can include data on businesses, other entities, or policies. Based on whether data is data on individuals or data not on individuals, the data can be classified in different ways. The first classification is public data. In Minnesota, the default classification for data is public. This means that unless there is a specific law classifying data as anything other than public or limiting access to that data, the data is automatically public and available to anyone for any reason. Public data can be either data on individuals or data not on individuals. A good example of public data on individuals is that all names and salaries of government employees are public. The next classifications are private or non-public data. Private data refer to data on individuals, while non-public data refer to data not on individuals. This classification limits access of this data to the subject of the data, individuals in the entity whose work assignment requires access, entities authorized by law, and anyone authorized by the data subject. This may include personnel information such as government employees' home address or home phone number. The final classifications are confidential or protected non-public data. These data are not available to the data subject. In fact, these data are only available to those in the entity whose work assignment requires access and any entities that are authorized by law. An example of this classification includes data collected as part of an active civil legal action. As a government employee, you may now be wondering how information maintained about you is classified. Personnel data is addressed in Minnesota Statute Section 1343. Personnel data is defined as government data on individuals that is maintained because the individual is or was an employee or applicant of a government entity. This includes volunteers or independent contractors. For data to be considered personnel data, the employee must be the subject of the data. This statute specifically outlines what data about you are public in Subdivision 2. This public data includes your name, ID number, salary and reimbursements, value of employer-paid benefits, terms of employment, your title and job description, your education and training, prior work experience, first and last dates of employment, the existence and status of any complaints against you and any resulting disciplinary action, your work location and work phone number, any continuing education, awards received, and timesheets. Subdivision 4 of this statute goes on to state that all other personnel data are private and may be released pursuant to court order. Further, any data regarding your dependents are private data. If you have questions about what information about you is public, be sure to speak to your supervisor or contact HR. When it comes to data, you as a government employee must comply with the requirements outlined in the Data Practices Act. The Act governs the collection, creation, storage, maintenance, dissemination, and access to government data in government entities. Depending on your position, you may be more or less involved in maintaining data. But regardless of your position, there are a few things that are important for every government employee to do. The first is to become familiar with your department's data retention policies. These policies will govern how long you keep certain data and processes for data destruction. This is important because it will dictate how you manage or organize your emails, correspondence, and work product. The second is to understand that data are classified in the various categories that we discussed previously, and these categories dictate who can have access to each type of data. The reason this is important is because you will need to ensure that you are only accessing or releasing data that you are permitted to access or release. If you are unsure how the data you work with are classified, talk with your supervisor. The third requirement is to ensure you comply with Minnesota Statute Section 1303, Subdivision 1, which requires that all government entities shall keep all records containing government data in such an arrangement and condition as to make them easily accessible for convenient use. This helps to facilitate responses to requests for data. Again, your department may have specific procedures in place for you to follow. Part of your work as a government employee is also to understand if you work with data that are classified as not public under the Data Practices Act. If you are working with data that are classified as not public, there are simple steps you can take to ensure the data is protected. First, when working with electronic data, make sure to lock your computer screen when you are away from your desk so that anyone not authorized to access the data cannot see or retrieve it. Additionally, make sure you have strong, secure passwords for your computer, email, or other electronic systems, and make sure not to share those passwords or post them so others can find them. When working with paper data, make sure to keep copies of not public data out of plain view and keep the data stored in locked file cabinets. And finally, follow your entity's requirements for disposing of all not public data to ensure proper and safe disposal. Your entity may have specific requirements for you to follow to protect not public data, so make sure to discuss this with your supervisor if you have questions. The tips in the previous slide can help prevent against improper use or access of not public government data as well as data breaches. However, these incidents can still happen intentionally or accidentally in the course of business. Some common examples include sending an email to the wrong person when that email contains not public data, or inadvertently accessing data at work that are not public when you do not have a work assignment to see it. Another example is looking up private information about someone you know purely out of curiosity when you do not have a governmental job-related purpose for accessing that information. The Data Practices Act does have requirements for determining when these instances constitute a data breach that require disclosure of a breach as well as notice and investigation. If a data breach occurs, or if you are unsure whether a specific incident is considered a data breach, talk to your supervisor and they will assist you in taking any corrective action necessary. As we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with some interesting facts about the Data Practices Act. If you send work-related emails from a personal email account, those emails are still considered government data. Also, as a member of the public, the Data Practices Act allows you to request public data from government entities. If a government entity is maintaining data about you that you believe to be incorrect, you may challenge the accuracy or completeness of that data. Thank you for viewing this presentation on the Data Practices Act and the basics that all employees need to know. This was only a brief introduction to data practices. If you are interested in learning more about the Minnesota Data Practices Act, please visit our website or contact us directly. Thank you.